I never imagined the person who would destroy my life wasn't a stranger's aider. It was my own sister. My name is Alina Brooks, and for 27 years, I believed I had the best sister anyone could ask for. Her name was Hazel Monroe. People always said we were inseparable. She was 5 years older than me, and after our parents passed away, she became my entire world. She attended every graduation, every birthday, and every important moment in my life. Whenever I was scared, Hazel would smile and say, "Don't worry, Allie, I'll always protect you." I believed her. I trusted her with everything. She knew my passwords, kept copies of my important documents, and even helped me organize my finances whenever I felt overwhelmed. I never questioned it because she was family. At 27, my life finally felt perfect. I had a good job at a marketing company in Chicago, a cozy apartment, loyal friends, and enough savings to start planning for my future. I thought the hardest days of my life were finally behind me, but I had no idea someone was quietly destroying everything I had built. One Monday morning, my phone rang during work. The caller said she was from a bank. "Miss Alina Brooks, we're calling about your overdue loan payment." I frowned. "I'm sorry. What loan?" The representative sounded confused. "The personal loan under your name. It's been overdue for weeks." My heart started racing. "There has to be some mistake," I said. "I've never applied for a personal loan." She apologized politely and ended the call. I convinced myself it was just an error. Until 3 days later, a thick envelope arrived at my apartment, then another and another. Every letter carried my name, unpaid loans, credit cards I had never opened, final payment notices, collection warnings. As I stared at the papers spread across my kitchen table, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Someone wasn't just pretending to be me, someone had stolen my entire identity, and I was about to discover that the betrayal came from the one person I trusted more than anyone else. For the next 2 days, I barely slept. Every time the mail arrived, I felt my stomach tighten. I spread every letter across my dining table and read them over and over, hoping I would find some simple explanation. Instead, things became even worse. According to the documents, someone had taken out 2 personal loans, opened 3 credit cards, and even rented a luxury SUV, all using my name. The total debt was more than $186,000. I couldn't breathe. There was no way I could ever pay that back. The next morning, I walked into the bank carrying a folder full of letters. "I think someone stole my identity," I told the manager. After checking the records, his expression changed. "Miss Brooks, these applications included copies of your driver's license, your social security number, your signature, and even answers to your security questions." I stared at him. How is that possible? He looked at me with sympathy. "Whoever did this didn't just know you. They knew everything about you." Those words echoed in my head the entire drive home. Who knew everything about me? That night, I searched through an old storage box where I kept important papers. My birth certificate was gone. My passport was missing. Even the folder containing old tax documents had disappeared. I knew I hadn't thrown them away. Someone had taken them. Then a memory suddenly hit me. About 8 months earlier, Hazel had offered to organize my paperwork. She smiled and said, "You're always so busy. Let me help." I had thanked her. I had even handed her the key to my filing cabinet. At the time, I thought she was being a caring sister. Now, for the first time in my life, a terrible thought crossed my mind. No, it couldn't be Hazel. She loved me. She would never hurt me, would she? I pushed the thought away, ashamed that I had even considered it. But deep inside, something didn't feel right anymore. I kept telling myself I was overthinking. Hazel wasn't just my sister. She was the person who had stood beside me after our parents died. There was no way she could betray me, or at least, that's what I wanted to believe. A few days later, I filed an official identity theft report and started gathering every document I could find. Every lunch break was spent calling banks, credit card companies, and credit bureaus. I was exhausted, but I refused to give up. Then something happened that changed everything. One afternoon, I received an email from one of the lenders. Attached to the email was a copy of the original loan application. As I looked through the pages, my eyes stopped on the emergency contact section. The name listed there was Hazel Monroe. My heart dropped. I read it again. And again. There was no mistake. Why would my sister's phone number be listed on a loan I had never applied for? I called Hazel immediately. She answered with her usual cheerful voice. "Hey, Allie, what's up?" Trying to stay calm, I asked, "Have you ever been listed as my emergency contact on any loan?" There was a brief silence. Then she laughed. "Of course not. Why would I?" Something about her answer felt rehearsed. Before I could ask another question, she quickly changed the subject. "So, are we still having dinner this weekend?" I said yes, but my mind was racing. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about the loan application. If Hazel was innocent, how did her phone number end up on confidential financial documents? The next morning, I visited another bank branch to request additional records. A kind employee quietly handed me copies of the application after verifying my identity. I almost dropped the papers when I saw the signature. It looked almost exactly like mine, but it wasn't. Someone had practiced my handwriting. Someone who had seen me sign documents hundreds of times. Someone who had lived beside me for years. For the first time, I stopped asking who stole my identity. Instead, I started asking, why would my own sister do this? That question haunted me for days. I wanted to believe there was another explanation. Maybe Hazel's information had been added by mistake. Maybe someone was trying to frame her. But deep down, I already knew the truth was waiting for me. I just wasn't ready to face it. The following Friday, Hazel invited me to her apartment for dinner. She acted exactly the way she always had. She hugged me, she asked about work, she laughed at old family memories. If I hadn't known about the loans, I would have believed everything was normal. But this time, I was paying attention. While Hazel was in the kitchen, her phone buzzed on the coffee table. I wasn't trying to spy. I was simply reaching for my glass of water when the screen lit up. A notification appeared. Payment received, $42,500. The sender's name wasn't saved. Just a number. A second message arrived seconds later. Delete the remaining files after next week. My heartbeat exploded. Hazel rushed back into the living room before I could read anything else. She quickly grabbed her phone, smiled nervously, and slipped it into her pocket. "Just work stuff," she said. For the first time in my life, my sister avoided looking me in the eyes. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I made a decision. If Hazel was innocent, my investigation would prove it. But if she was guilty, I wasn't going to let her destroy my life without consequences. I borrowed a small voice recorder from a friend and kept every email, every bank statement, every collection notice, and every document in a locked folder. Then I checked something I should have checked months ago: my credit report. As I scrolled through the accounts, one address appeared again and again. It wasn't my apartment. It wasn't any place I had ever lived. It was Hazel's address. At that moment, every piece of the puzzle came together. The missing documents, the forged signature, the emergency contact, the mysterious payments, the fake loans. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't identity theft by a stranger. It was a carefully planned betrayal by the person I loved the most. I looked at my phone as Hazel's name flashed across the screen. For a few seconds, I just stared at it. Then I answered with a calm voice, because she still believed I knew nothing, and I decided to keep it that way. If Hazel wanted to play a game, I was about to let her think she was winning. From that day on, I stopped acting like a victim. I started acting like someone who already knew the truth. Whenever Hazel called, I smiled. Whenever she asked if everything was okay, I said, "I'm doing great." She had no idea I was quietly collecting evidence against her. For the next 3 weeks, I documented everything. Every suspicious phone call, every bank statement, every email, every late payment notice. I created a timeline showing exactly when the fake accounts had been opened. One detail stood out immediately. Almost every fraudulent application had been submitted while Hazel was staying at my apartment. It couldn't be a coincidence anymore. Then I hired a private investigator. His name was Daniel Reeves, a former financial crimes investigator. After listening to my story, he said something I will never forget. People who steal identities usually leave a trail. The question is, are they smart enough to hide all of it? A week later, Daniel called me. I found something. My hands were shaking as I drove to his office. He placed several documents on the table. One by one, He explained what he had discovered. The money from the loans had never reached me. Instead, it had been transferred through several accounts before ending up in a business account secretly controlled by Hazel Monroe. I couldn't speak. Daniel slid one final document across the desk. It was a copy of a security camera image from the bank branch where the first loan had been approved. The woman in the picture was wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, but there was no mistaking her. It was Hazel. My own sister had walked into that bank, pretending to be me. I felt tears running down my face. Not because of the money, not because of the debt, but because every happy memory I had with her suddenly felt like a lie. Daniel looked at me and quietly asked, "So, what do you want to do now?" I wiped my tears away. For weeks I had imagined confronting Hazel, screaming at her, demanding answers. But now, I wanted something much bigger. I wanted the truth to come out in front of everyone. I wanted her to lose the trust she had stolen from me. And I wanted her to face the consequences of every single lie. So I looked Daniel in the eyes and said, "No more secrets. Let's make sure she can never do this to anyone again." Daniel and I spent the next 2 weeks building an airtight case. Every bank record, every forged signature, every transfer, every fake account, everything was organized in chronological order. But Daniel warned me about one thing. If you confront Hazel now, she'll destroy the evidence. So I stayed quiet. I answered her calls. I had dinner with her. I even smiled when she hugged me. Every second felt unbearable. Then Hazel invited me to a family dinner with our relatives. She had no idea that I had a different plan. That morning, Daniel called. "The police and the bank's fraud investigators are ready. As soon as she admits anything or tries to lie about the evidence, they'll step in." I took a deep breath. This ends today. That evening, everyone was laughing around the dinner table. Hazel acted like the perfect sister. She even raised a glass and said, "I'm so proud of Alina. She's the strongest person I know." Hearing those words made my stomach turn. When everyone finished eating, I stood up. "I need to say something." The room fell silent. I looked directly at Hazel. "You've been asking me why I've looked so stressed lately." She smiled. "Yeah, I've been worried about you." I nodded slowly. "The reason is simple. I found out who stole my identity." The smile disappeared from Hazel's face. She tried to laugh. "What? That's terrible." I placed a thick folder on the table. Inside were the bank records, transfer receipts, forged applications, security camera photos, and investigation reports. "I know it was you." Nobody spoke. Hazel's face turned pale. "Alina, what are you talking about?" I opened the folder and showed everyone the evidence. The emergency contact with Hazel's phone number, the money transfers, the forged signatures, the bank security photo, the secret account. One by one, every lie fell apart. Hazel suddenly stood up. "This is a misunderstanding." At that exact moment, there was a knock on the front door. Daniel walked in with 2 detectives. One detective calmly said, "Hazel Monroe, we need to speak with you regarding multiple counts of identity theft, fraud, and financial crimes." The room was completely silent, for the first time since this nightmare began. Hazel had nothing left to say. The woman who stole my identity could no longer hide behind my name. 6 months later, I walked into the courthouse with my head held high. The woman sitting across the courtroom wasn't the sister I used to admire. She was just another defendant waiting to hear her sentence. During the trial, the prosecutors presented every piece of evidence Daniel and I had collected: the bank surveillance footage, the forged signatures, the money transfers, the fake loan applications. Even Hazel's deleted messages had been recovered by forensic investigators. There was nowhere left for her to hide. For the first few days, Hazel insisted she was innocent. She claimed someone had framed her. But when the evidence kept piling up, her lawyer advised her to tell the truth. With tears in her eyes, Hazel finally admitted everything. She confessed that she had been drowning in debt after making a series of terrible financial decisions. Instead of asking for help, she chose the easiest target, me, because she knew my passwords. She knew where I kept my documents. She knew I trusted her enough never to question anything. She thought she could secretly repay the loans before I ever found out, but the debts kept growing, and her lies grew even faster. When the judge asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement, I stood up and looked directly at Hazel. I wasn't angry anymore. I was simply heartbroken. I said, "You didn't just steal my identity. You stole my peace. You stole my future. You stole the meaning of the word family. The money can be recovered, my credit score can be repaired, but I'll never get my trust back." Hazel lowered her head and cried. For the first time, I didn't cry with her. The judge sentenced Hazel for identity theft, fraud, and financial crimes. As she was led out of the courtroom, she looked back at me one last time. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I simply turned around and walked away. Over the next year, I worked with banks and credit agencies to clear my name. It wasn't easy, but little by little, my life came back together. I found a better job, I bought a new apartment, and for the first time in a long time, I slept peacefully. People often ask me if I ever forgave my sister. The answer is simple. I let go of the hatred, but I never forgot the lesson. Sometimes, the deepest betrayal doesn't come from your enemies. It comes from the people you love the most. And if my story teaches you anything, let it be this. Trust is precious. Protect it carefully, because once it's broken, not even family can always put it back together.